September 19, 1944, 7:30 in the morning. The fog lies thick over the French countryside near Arracourt, Lorraine, like a wet blanket smothering everything, turning the world into ghosts and shadows. Panzer Commander Unterscharführer Karl Hoffmann leans forward in his cupola, squinting into the gray void. His breath comes shallow, hands trembling. Not from cold, but from something he just saw through a crack in the mist. Something impossible. Through that brief window in the fog, he caught a glimpse of metal. American metal. A tank destroyer, maybe? It appeared from nowhere, fired twice with surgical precision, then vanished before his gunner could even swing the turret halfway around. 50 meters to their left, another Panther burns. Black smoke curling into the morning air. Twisted steel bleeding flame. This is no hallucination. This is real. 42 Panthers of the 113th Panzer Brigade rolled forward that morning with the kind of confidence that comes from mechanical superiority. These machines, these Panzerkampfwagen V Panthers with their 75mm high-velocity guns and sloped armor that could bounce Allied shells like pebbles, they were supposed to be unstoppable. The pinnacle of German engineering. The crews had been told over and over that American armor was soft, hastily welded together in factories that valued quantity over quality, manned by boys who didn't know the first thing about real armored combat. What they were about to encounter in those fog-shrouded fields would shatter every belief they carried from the Eastern Front. The M18 Hellcat, a name most of them wouldn't learn until they were captured or somehow survived, was about to teach them that the Americans hadn't just built another tank. They had reimagined war itself, traded armor for speed, turned every rule upside down, made the hunter into the hunted. The story of the M18 begins not on a battlefield, but in the mind of a visionary. December 1941, Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Davis Bruce stands in his new office at Fort Meade, Maryland, commanding the newly formed Tank Destroyer Center. He's been studying the German blitzkrieg with fresh eyes. Not as a soldier bound by tradition, but as an engineer looking for weaknesses in the design. His conclusion hits like a thunderclap. Why meet tanks with tanks in heavyweight slugging matches when you could create something that strikes like lightning and disappears before the enemy even knows what hit them? Bruce's vision is radical, almost heretical by military standards. He wants three things in order: speed first, firepower second, crew efficiency third, armor protection. That sacred principle of German tank philosophy barely makes the list. This kind of thinking would get you laughed out of a Wehrmacht planning room where the progression from Panzer III to Panther to Tiger represented an unstoppable march toward thicker steel and bigger guns. The Ordnance Department issues requirements: torsion bar suspension, right Continental R975 engine. Initially, a 37mm gun, though that evolves rapidly as prototypes roll through testing. The T-70 76mm gun motor carriage emerges from the evolution, destined to become the M18. By July 1943, the first production models roll off the assembly line at Buick's plant in Flint, Michigan, and what emerges is something that will challenge everything anyone thought they knew about armored combat. The heart of the beast is a 9-cylinder Wright R975 radial aircraft engine, the same power plant that drives the M4 Sherman, but here's the difference. The Sherman weighs 33 tons. The M18 weighs barely 20. That engine pumps out somewhere between 350 and 400 horsepower depending on who you ask. And the result is speed that seems physically impossible for a tracked vehicle. 55 miles per hour on roads. Some sources claim 60 in ideal conditions. This isn't marginally faster than German armor. This is a different universe entirely. The Panther's maximum road speed of 29 miles per hour seems respectable until you watch an M18 maintain 40 miles per hour across broken ground. Across terrain that would force a German tank to crawl, the roots of German armored dominance run deep, back to Poland and France, where they perfected combined arms tactics. panzer divisions moving as integrated fists, tanks and mechanized infantry and artillery and engineers all working in concert. The tanks themselves were the armored punch designed to break through lines and create chaos in rear areas. Speed mattered, sure, but survivability mattered more. German tank development reflected this philosophy religiously. Each generation grew heavier, more armored, more powerfully armed. The Panther, introduced in 1943, weighed 45 tons with armor up to 100 mm thick on the turret front. The Tiger II, entering service in 1944, pushed those numbers to 70 tons and 180 mm, respectively. The American Tank Destroyer doctrine, formalized in Field Manual 18-5, represented a complete rejection of everything the Germans believed. Tank destroyers would be held in reserve, responding rapidly to enemy armor concentrations. Instead of dueling at range, they would use superior mobility to achieve flanking positions. Destroy enemy armor from the sides and rear, then redeploy before anyone could counterattack. The M18 originated in an unlikely place. Harley Earl's design studio, part of Buick Motor Division at General Motors. Earl was famous for automotive design, sleek cars with curves and style. He brought that perspective to military vehicle development, and the result looked and performed more like a race car with a cannon mounted on top than anything resembling a traditional tank. The combat debut came in Italy, where 5 T-70 models were sent to the 894th Tank Destroyer Battalion at Anzio Beachhead in spring 1944. The Italian campaign, with its mountains and narrow roads, hardly seemed ideal for a vehicle designed for high-speed maneuver. Yet even there, the M18's capabilities stunned German defenders. But those early engagements remained localized. Their lessons never really spread through the Wehrmacht. The German army in France, preparing for the invasion they knew was coming, remained focused on massed Sherman tanks and tank destroyers, like the M10, which, while more mobile than German tanks, still operated within conventional parameters. By September 1944, when the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion with its M18 Hellcats joined the U.S. 4th Armored Division near Arracourt, the German army in Lorraine was operating under a fatal misunderstanding. The 113th Panzer Brigade formed on September 4th, and by the time it was sent to Saarburg on September 16th, it had 42 Panther tanks. Many crew members were veterans of the Eastern Front, where they had faced T-34s and KV-1s in brutal engagements where armor and firepower determined who lived and who died. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion had originally trained on the M3 gun motor carriage. They had a superlative testing record and were later issued production Hellcats. The unit had spent months perfecting techniques that would maximize the Hellcats' speed advantage. The morning of September 19th, the 113th, Panzer Brigade advances through thick fog toward Arracourt, expecting to brush aside American screening forces and strike deep into the rear areas of the 4th Armored Division. German intelligence had identified Sherman tanks in the area, but no significant anti-tank defenses. At 07:15 hours, as German Panthers creep forward through the fog at 5 miles per hour, straining to see through the mist, Lieutenant Edwin Leiper's platoon of 4 M18 Hellcats from Company C, 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion, sits positioned near Rechicourt-le-Petit. The M18s have been in position since before dawn, engines idling quietly, crews scanning their assigned sectors with eyes that have adjusted to the gray. Lieutenant Leiper sees it first. A German tank gun muzzle appearing out of the fog 30 feet away like a serpent emerging from smoke. He deploys his platoon immediately. The first indication the Germans have of the M18's presence comes when an American tank destroyer roars to life and accelerates from complete stop to 30 miles per hour in seconds. Acceleration that would take a Panther nearly 30 seconds to achieve. The M18 bursts from its concealed position, races to a flanking position. The 76 mm gun barks twice. Rounds slam into the side of the nearest Panther before the German turret has traversed even halfway toward the threat. In 5 minutes, 5 German tanks of the 113th Panzer Brigade are knocked out for the loss of 1 M18. The engagement demonstrates systematic destruction by an enemy that refuses to fight according to the rules the Germans understand. The disparities between the Panther and M18 create a fundamental mismatch in combat capabilities. The Panther's turret weighs nearly 7 tons with its thick armor and long 75mm gun. It requires 60 seconds to complete a full rotation using its hydraulic traverse system. Under combat conditions with the engine at low RPM, to minimize detection, traverse speeds drop even further. The M18's turret, by contrast, weighs just over 2 tons. The speed of traverse is far faster when compared to the M10, which had a manually rotated turret. An M18 crew can track and engage targets in any direction within seconds, while Panther crews are still struggling to locate the threat. Early feedback from crews indicates that the M18 can go hundreds of miles under trying conditions without requiring major repairs to either armaments or engine. Crews report only having to perform minimal maintenance on the vehicle's moving parts. The Panther, despite its fearsome reputation, suffers from chronic mechanical problems. Final drive failures are endemic. The unit was designed for a 35-ton vehicle, but installed in the 45-ton Panther. During the September 19th engagement, several Panthers are abandoned due to mechanical failure during attempted pursuit of the M18s. As the morning fog begins to lift around dawn 900 hours, the full sophistication of American tank destroyer tactics becomes apparent. The M18s operate not as individual vehicles, but as a coordinated team using radio communication to vector each other onto targets and warn of threats. Under the direction of Captain Tom Evans, the lead platoon of Company C serves as an attractive target for the German tanks, which failed to notice the other 2 platoons of Hellcats advancing on their flanks. This is tank destroyer doctrine in perfect execution. One element fixing enemy attention while others maneuver for killing shots. The coordination extends beyond individual platoons. Combat Command A's dispositions around Arracourt consist of a thinly held salient using an extended outpost line of armored infantry and engineers supported by tanks and tank destroyers and artillery. The M18s are the mobile striking force operating within a sophisticated combined arms system. By noon on September 19th, the 113th, Panzer Brigade's attack has stalled completely. The platoon continues to fire and destroys 10 more German tanks while losing another 2 M18s. One of the platoon's M18s, commanded by Sergeant Henry R. Hartmann, knocks out 6 of the German tanks, most of which are Panthers. The mathematics are incomprehensible to German commanders. Panthers costing 100 Reichsmarks each and requiring 2,000 man-hours to build are being destroyed by vehicles that cost $500 and can be assembled in a fraction of the time. Poor tactical deployment of the German tanks soon exposes their weaker side armor to Shermans, which flank and knock out 11 Panzers, using the fog as cover. The Germans, lacking adequate reconnaissance, have advanced blindly into a kill zone. The M18's speed advantage isn't just about the engine. Every aspect of the vehicle has been optimized for rapid movement and quick reaction. The M18's design incorporates several innovative labor-saving maintenance features, with the engine mounted on steel rollers that allow maintenance crews to disconnect it easily from the transmission, roll it out onto the lowered engine rear cover, service it, and reconnect it. A trained crew can replace an entire engine in less than 2 hours, a job that requires a full day on a Panther. Buick engineers use a torsion bar suspension that provides a steady ride. German tanks still use leaf spring or interleaved road wheel systems that limit high-speed travel over rough terrain. An M18 can maintain 40 miles per hour across broken ground that would force a Panther to slow to 10 miles per hour or risk throwing a track. The automatic transmission represents another advantage. The M18 uses the innovative Torque-matic automatic transmission derived from Buick's civilian designs, allowing drivers to concentrate on maneuvering while the transmission handles gear changes. Panther drivers wrestle with manual gearboxes requiring double clutching and precise timing. The American superiority in radio communication proves decisive. Every M18 carries an SCR 508 FM radio set, providing reliable voice communication between vehicles and with supporting units. German tanks typically have one radio per platoon, with other vehicles relying on signal flags or pre-arranged maneuvers. This communication gap multiplies the M18's speed advantage. American tank destroyer crews can coordinate complex maneuvers in real time, calling out targets, warning of threats, adjusting tactics instantly. German crews operate in relative isolation, each tank commander making decisions based only on what he can see through his vision blocks. By September 20th, as the 111th Panzer Brigade joins the battle, German tank crews are experiencing something unprecedented: fear of an enemy they cannot effectively fight. The psychological impact goes beyond the immediate tactical situation. These are men who have faced T-34s in Ukraine, who have survived the crushing battles of Kursk, who have learned that German tactical skill and technical superiority can overcome numerical disadvantages. The Panther has been their vindication, a tank that can destroy any Allied vehicle while remaining immune to return fire, now that certainty is shattered. The speed difference creates tactical situations that German training has never addressed. Panthers designed as offensive weapons to dominate the battlefield find themselves desperately trying to defend against an enemy that refuses to stand and fight. Hellcat crews learn that a well-placed shot between the mantlet and the glacis plate of a Panther will cause the shell to ricochet into the driving compartment, killing the crew or disabling the tank. This requires extreme close range and precise shooting. Tactics that would be suicidal against an enemy that can respond quickly, but the Panthers cannot respond quickly enough. Their ponderous turret traverse, slow acceleration, and limited visibility make them vulnerable to an enemy that turns every strength into weakness. The Germans attempt various adaptations. Some units begin operating Panthers in pairs, back-to-back, attempting to cover all angles. But this requires stationary positioning, surrendering all initiative to the Americans. It also assumes reliable communication between vehicles, which most German tanks lack. Behind the tactical revolution lies an industrial reality that German officers are only beginning to grasp. The M18 isn't just faster than German tanks, it is easier to produce, maintain, and replace. Production begins in July 1943, and 2,507 units are built by October 1944. Production peaks in January 1944 at 250 M18s per month. Each vehicle requires approximately 500 man-hours to complete, compared to the 2,000 man-hours needed for a Panther. German tank production grows increasingly complex as the war progresses. The Panther requires specialized tools, skilled workers, and rare materials. Its Maybach engine is hand-assembled by craftsmen. Each vehicle is essentially hand-built, limiting production, even when resources are available. American factories can replace every M18 lost at Arracourt in less than 2 days of production. German Panther production at its absolute peak manages 380 vehicles per month across all factories, but this includes all fronts: training vehicles and replacements. The loss of 39 Panthers at Arracourt represents over a week's total production. As the Battle of Arracourt continues through late September, American crews refine their tactics based on combat experience. M18s begin operating in coordinated groups, using their speed to overwhelm German defenses from multiple directions simultaneously. The morning of September 22nd sees new tactics employed. M18s sprint across open ground at maximum speed toward German positions near Coincourt. The Panthers, caught completely off guard by the speed of approach, manage only a few wild shots before the M18s are among them. The psychological effect on German crews is devastating. They know the Americans are coming. They can hear the engines from a kilometer away. But knowing and responding are different things. The M18s cover the distance in less than a minute, moving too fast for German gunners to track effectively. As the battle continues, another M18 advantage emerges: mechanical reliability under combat conditions. Crews report that their vehicles can go hundreds of miles under trying conditions without requiring major repairs. The Panther is a maintenance nightmare. By September 22nd, the 113th Panzer Brigade reports that of their original Panthers, many losses are due to mechanical failure rather than enemy action. Final drives fail under the stress of rapid maneuvering. Transmissions overheat from drivers trying to accelerate quickly to respond to M18 attacks. The M18, built with American automotive mass production techniques and reliability standards, simply keeps running. The air-cooled right engine, while loud, is nearly indestructible. The automatic transmission requires minimal maintenance. The torsion bar suspension has few parts to fail. On September 24th, Lieutenant Colonel Creighton Abrams, commanding the 37th Tank Battalion, coordinates a combined attack with the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion. Sherman tanks will advance slowly, drawing German attention and fire, while M18s use their speed to infiltrate through wooded areas and dead ground. The tactic works brilliantly, as Panthers engage the Shermans at long range, confident in their superior guns, and armor M18s burst from concealment at multiple points. The German tanks, caught in a crossfire, cannot respond effectively to threats from multiple directions. By September 25th, senior German commanders are beginning to understand the nature of the threat they face. General der Panzertruppen Hasso von Manteuffel, commanding the 5th Panzer Army, issues new tactical instructions, essentially admitting defeat. Enemy tank destroyers of exceptional speed operating in this sector: do not pursue, do not engage in mobile battle. These instructions reduce the Panther, designed as a mobile offensive weapon, to a static pillbox. They surrender all initiative to the Americans and acknowledge that German armor can no longer dominate the battlefield through superior tactics and technology. By the time the Battle of Arracourt ends, the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion has knocked out 39 German tanks, for the loss of 4 M18s destroyed and 3 more damaged. This remarkable kill ratio vindicates the American tank destroyer doctrine in the most dramatic fashion possible. The battle demonstrates that the entire German conception of tank warfare, based on armor, firepower, and deliberate tactical movement, can be negated by sufficient speed and tactical flexibility. The M18 has proven that a vehicle with armor barely sufficient to stop small arms fire can dominate heavily armored opponents. Through superior mobility, the ultimate test of the M18's revolutionary impact comes in December 1944 during the Battle of the Bulge. German forces, launching their last major offensive in the West, initially achieve surprise and breakthrough. But as M18-equipped tank destroyer battalions rush to critical points, their speed again proves decisive. Team de Sobry, a battalion-sized tank infantry task force of the 10th Armored Division, is assigned to defend Noville. With just 4 M18 tank destroyers of the 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion to assist, they attack units of the 2nd Panzer Division. Team de Sobry's high-speed highway journey to reach the blocking position is one of the few documented cases where the top speed of the M18 Hellcat is actually used to get ahead of an enemy force. The high-speed deployment of M18s to blocking positions ahead of German spearheads repeatedly disrupts German timetables. Panthers and Tigers find themselves engaged by M18s that have raced ahead to favorable positions, using their speed to concentrate at critical points faster than German commanders can adjust their plans. The final statistics from the European theater tell a sobering story for German armor advocates. The M18 has a higher kill-to-loss ratio than any other tank or tank destroyer fielded by U.S. forces in World War II. Kills claimed are 526 in total, 498 in Europe, 17 in Italy, and 11 in the Pacific. The kills-to-losses ratio for Europe is 2.3 to 1, and the overall kill-to-loss ratio is 2.4 to 1. These numbers become even more impressive when considering that M18s are not primarily used for tank fighting, but are committed more often to improvised roles, usually direct fire support for infantry. Even when employed outside their intended role, M18s maintain exceptional effectiveness. The fundamental difference between German and American armored vehicle design philosophy is starkly illustrated in the contrast between the Panther and the M18. Both were designed in response to combat experience, but the conclusions drawn were entirely opposite. The Germans looked at the T-34's sloped armor and powerful gun and decided they needed something similar but better. Hence the Panther, with thicker sloped armor and a more powerful gun. It was an evolutionary response, taking existing concepts to their logical extreme. The Americans reached a revolutionary conclusion. The best armor is not being hit at all. The M18 represents a complete reimagining of what an armored fighting vehicle could be. Not a mobile bunker, but a precision weapon on tracks able to deliver strikes and evade retaliation. The M18's success at Arracourt offers profound lessons about military innovation. The Germans have pursued a linear path of development. More armor, bigger guns, heavier vehicles. Each generation of tank is an incremental improvement on the last, fighting the same way but with greater capability. The Americans, constrained by the need to ship vehicles across the Atlantic and faced with an enemy that has already optimized conventional tank design, choose revolution over evolution. The M18 doesn't try to beat German tanks at their own game. It changes the game entirely. Throughout the battles around Arracourt and beyond, individual M18 crews perform acts of exceptional skill that demonstrate the vehicle's potential when manned by aggressive crews. Sergeant Henry R. Hartman, who destroys 6 Panthers on September 19th, becomes a legend within the Tank Destroyer force. His technique, using terrain to mask approach, striking from unexpected angles and displacing immediately after firing, becomes the textbook example of M18 employment. On October 13th, when elements of the 11th Panzer Division reinforced with Tiger, Tank's attempt to retake Arracourt, the battle demonstrates that even the Tiger's advantages cannot overcome the M18's speed and tactics. Tigers lumber forward at 15 miles per hour maximum speed, while M18s race around their flanks. The Tiger's turret, even slower to traverse than the Panthers, cannot track the fast-moving tank destroyers. The story of the M18's development and production is itself revolutionary. From concept to combat deployment takes less than 2 years. Unprecedented for a completely new armored vehicle. The M18 originates in Harley Earl's design studio at Buick. Earl, famous for designing sleek automobiles, brings automotive sensibilities to military vehicle design. The production process utilizes automotive mass production techniques. Workers who have built Buicks can, with minimal retraining, build Hellcats. Unlike German tanks, which require skilled craftsmen and specialized tools, M18s are built using standard automotive components wherever possible. The M18 incorporates numerous technological advantages that multiply its effectiveness. The vehicle's fire control system, while simpler than German optical rangefinders, is faster to use in the fluid engagements that characterize M18 combat. The periscopic sight can be operated independently of the gun, allowing the commander to search for targets while the gunner engages. German tanks require the entire turret to rotate for the commander to observe, making target acquisition slower and more obvious to enemies. The M18's ammunition storage is another advantage. Rounds are stored in protected bins that reduce the chance of catastrophic explosion if penetrated. M18 crews can survive hits that would destroy German vehicles, allowing experienced crews to remain in combat. As 1944 progresses into 1945, American tank destroyer doctrine evolves based on combat experience. While the initial concept of held reserves responding to massed tank attacks rarely materializes, M18s find themselves supporting infantry divisions, providing mobile anti-tank defense and direct fire support. This doctrinal flexibility proves another American advantage. While German Panzer units remain wedded to increasingly obsolete tactical concepts, American forces adapt continuously. M18 battalions develop new techniques for urban combat, forest fighting and river crossings, situations their designers never envisioned. By early 1945, the German armored force is caught in an impossible situation, partly created by the M18's success. Unable to match American mobility, German tanks are increasingly relegated to static defense. This surrenders all initiative to Allied forces and makes German armor vulnerable to artillery and air attack. The production situation is equally dire. German factories disrupted by bombing and starved of resources struggle to maintain minimal production. Meanwhile, American factories continue producing M18s and other vehicles at rates that seem impossible to German planners. General Oberst Heinz Guderian, Inspector General of Panzer Forces, recognizes the implications. The M18 is not just a tank destroyer. It is the physical manifestation of American industrial and tactical superiority. Germany cannot win a mobile war against an enemy that moves at twice their speed, nor can they win a production war against an enemy that builds vehicles in a fraction of the time. The Rhine crossing in March 1945 provides final validation of the M18's revolutionary impact, as German forces desperately try to concentrate armor to prevent the crossing M18's race to critical points, often arriving hours ahead of German forces despite starting from farther away. At Remagen, when the Ludendorff Bridge is unexpectedly captured intact, M18s are among the first vehicles across, using their speed to establish a bridgehead perimeter before German forces can respond. Panthers and Tigers rushing to contain the bridgehead find M18s already in ambush positions. The M18 story doesn't end in 1945. During the Korean War, 650 early production M18s are converted into M39s by removing the turret and fitting seats for up to 8 men in the open fighting space. The M39 armored utility vehicles prove the chassis' enduring value. Perhaps more interesting are the reports from former Wehrmacht officers serving as advisors to the new West German Bundeswehr in the 1950s. When evaluating American armor for possible adoption, they universally recommend against heavy tanks and in favor of mobile systems inspired by the M18. The psychological impact of the M18 on German tank crews lasts long after the war. Veterans consistently rate the M18 as the most feared American armored vehicle, ahead of the M26 Pershing heavy tank or tank-killing aircraft like the P-47 Thunderbolt. The M18 has achieved something remarkable. It has not just defeated German armor tactically, but has broken the psychological superiority that German tank crews have enjoyed since 1940. The hunters have become the hunted, and they never recover. The numbers tell the story of the M18's impact. Production timeline design initiated December 1941, first prototype tested April 1943, production began July 1943. Peak production, January 1944, at 250 units per month. Production ended October 1944. Total produced, 2,507. Combat performance, total enemy vehicles claimed, destroyed 526. M18s lost in combat 216. Kill-to-loss ratio 2.4 to 1. Mechanical readiness rate 78%. Speed comparison, M18, Hellcat 55 to 60 miles per hour road, 26 miles per hour cross-country. Panther 29 miles per hour road, 15 miles per hour cross-country. Tiger 24 miles per hour road, 12 miles per hour cross-country. Tiger the Sioux 21 miles per hour road, 10 miles per hour cross-country. The contrast between the Panther and M18 represents fundamentally different approaches to armored warfare. The Germans have perfected the traditional tank. Heavily armored, powerfully armed, mechanically sophisticated. They have taken the concept as far as it can go, producing vehicles like the Tiger II that represent the ultimate evolution of World War I tank concepts. The Americans with the M18 don't build a better traditional tank. They build something entirely different, a vehicle that makes traditional tanks less relevant. By prioritizing speed over armor, mobility over firepower, mechanical reliability over complexity, they create a weapon system that challenges decades of armored warfare doctrine. The influence of the M18's revolutionary design philosophy extends far beyond World War II. Modern armored warfare doctrine emphasizing mobility, situational awareness, and networked operations over pure firepower and protection can trace its roots directly to the lessons learned from the M18's success. The Israeli Merkava, the American M1 Abrams, the German Leopard 2, all modern main battle tanks incorporate lessons from the M18 experience. The importance of mechanical reliability, the value of superior situational awareness, the critical nature of tactical mobility. While these modern tanks are heavily armored, they prioritize speed and agility to a degree that would have seemed impossible to World War II German tank designers. In post-war years, veterans from both sides reflect on the M18's impact. American tank destroyer crews speak with pride about their vehicle's capabilities and the revolution it represents. German tank crews, even decades later, remember the fear and frustration of facing an enemy that refuses to fight on their terms. At a 1985 reunion at Arracourt, veterans from both sides walk the battlefield where the M18 has revolutionized armored warfare. German and American veterans, now elderly men, share their experiences and acknowledge the transformation that occurred there. The ceremony includes a demonstration of a restored M18, which even 40 years later can still achieve its remarkable top speed. As it races across the field where so many Panthers met their end, the German veterans watch in silence, a testament to the enduring impact of the revolution they witnessed. The story of German tankers encountering the M18 Hellcat represents more than tactical innovation or technological superiority. It represents a fundamental revolution in military thinking, a moment when an entire philosophy of warfare is rendered less effective by a radically different approach. The Germans have perfected the traditional tank, taking the concept as far as it can go with vehicles like the Tiger II. The Americans with the M18 don't build a better traditional tank. They build something entirely different, a vehicle that changes the nature of armored combat. The German tankers who face M18s at Arracourt and elsewhere are not just outfought. They are confronted with evidence that their approach to armored warfare needs fundamental reconsideration. Their heavily armored Panthers and Tigers engineering marvels that they are become vulnerable when faced with an enemy that refuses to engage on traditional terms. With 526 enemy vehicles destroyed, for 216 M18s lost, the numbers tell part of the story. But the real victory is psychological and doctrinal. The M18 proves that wars can be won not necessarily by the side with the biggest tanks or thickest armor, but by the side that can adapt, innovate, and implement new concepts fastest. In the end, the German tankers who survive encounters with the M18 carry with them a profound lesson. In warfare, as in evolution, it is not always the strongest that survives, but often the most adaptable. The M18 Hellcat, racing across the battlefields of France at speeds that seem impossible, firing and vanishing like a ghost, represents that adaptability in its purest form. The revolution is complete. The age of pure, heavy tank dominance is being challenged, and the importance of mobility, flexibility, and speed has been dramatically demonstrated. The German tankers who witnessed this transformation firsthand know, even if they cannot fully articulate it at the time that they are watching, not just a tactical defeat, but the birth of new concepts in armored warfare. Their experience, preserved in military archives and historical studies, stands as evidence that sometimes in warfare, speed and agility can indeed defeat armor and firepower, especially when that speed reaches 55 to 60 miles per hour and comes with a 76mm gun. The M18 Hellcat has done more than destroy German tanks. It has destroyed German certainty about armored warfare, shattered assumptions about tank combat, and demonstrated that revolutionary thinking can overcome evolutionary perfection. For the German tank crews who faced them in the fog at Arracourt and beyond, the Hellcats represent not just a new American weapon, but a new era in mechanized warfare, one where the race would indeed go to the swift. The engines fade into the distance, the gunfire falls silent. But the echoes of that September morning still whisper across the fields of Lorraine, a reminder that sometimes the greatest victories come not from building stronger walls, but from moving too fast for walls to matter. The memories of World War II remind us not only of the price of freedom, but of the strength of the human spirit. Let us preserve their stories so they are never forgotten. Please subscribe to help keep these memories alive.